Is the sell-off over soon? Today we'll break it down. A lot happening out there in the market. I do want to thank our sponsor, and that is Tangem, where you guys can get into self-custody. Some super cool deals, though. You can actually get into some of these limited edition cards for self-custody. These work with your phone, and it is a place where you can park assets and, of course, do it in a secure way. Get some additional rewards in both Bitcoin and get the limited edition wallet. Very simple to do. All you have to do is go over to tangem.com. You too can secure your crypto hardware wallet and do it very easily and super safe. So check it out. Use our link down below to get started. Let's get into a few points I want to lead off with. And of course, one of the lead off points will be Tom Lee and where he thinks this market is right now. Take a look.
Would you buy the market today?
Yeah, I think we're 90 to 95% through the sell-off.
What gives you that confidence?
Well, I think some of it's positioning, and Goldman had a really nice piece about hedge fund positioning.
That's right. Their note was basically like, look, we've observed a lot of hedge funds selling, which looked like capitulation activity to us, so maybe that's run its course, so now you can perhaps build that base back up.
Yeah, so I think that's one component. The second is retail sentiment's very negative because the AAII bulls less bears is minus 20. That's a tactical sign. The VIX closed above 30. And now I think earnings season is going to show earnings probably going to hold up better. And then the last piece there is I think we're just going to have to realize that stocks tend to bottom early in a wartime situation. So we've looked at every war since 1900. Stocks will bottom within the first 10% of that war. So if this is a 2-year war, we're going to bottom pretty early into that process.
So if you are on Tom Lee's side, let me know if you guys are. Are you on the back half of this bear market? Let me know in the comments down below. If you want to follow Jim Cramer, he had a few points. 3 ways the stock market will flip the U.S. or flip if the U.S. and the Iranian war ends. I want to highlight a couple of them. We saw what could happen if you give peace a chance. So if we see any kind of peace deal, obviously that's going to be a big thing. He also noted that we're starting to see 10-year treasuries making a major reversal. Risk also from higher energy costs, lower odds of the Federal Reserve cutting in 2026. That would be another factor. Other things he kind of hit it on right here. We didn't know going into war would actually affect our farmers. That's another issue because we're starting to see other commodities, fertilizers, etc., that are going to affect food supply. These kind of things are the concern I have. So it's raising a lot of concerns also around deal making. So beyond what's happening at Wall Street, if you look at the lagging effects that this war may have on supply chain and also some of the key supply chain areas such as food supplies, LNG, other things that could flow into this, even if you look at where we are on ground beef hitting an all-time high, these things are happening right now. Now remember, all of this happens, then you start to see consumer sentiment impact, then consumer reaction. So we are still a ways out before we start to see retail reaction, which is the bigger area that I'm more concerned with. Right now, what Tom Lee was talking about earlier was the lagging earnings. All those are coming from previous quarters, which were pretty good for most Fortune 500. So that in itself still is an early phase, and it could be one of those things where maybe this is nearing the bottom. And of course, everything hinges on what Trump is going to do. I want to go to another clip real quick because this is where Tom Lee is trying to set up an actual strategy. Take a look.
Ugly again. There's like it doesn't feel like there's an ability for a stock like that in a group that went straight up and to the right to find any stability there. Mega caps, they haven't looked great at all. And the only thing I can find people saying good about them is, well, look at their multiples now. Yeah. They've compressed a lot in the pullback.
Yeah, we're in the fire ready aim phase, right, where any little bad news is going to cause people to de-risk. But as you know, that's why the positioning is something to watch, because at some point people have gotten too neutral and then less bad things can happen and the market has a V-shaped recovery.
So less bad things, too neutral, then you compile that along with what's happening tonight with President Trump. And this is really going to boil down to the next 12 hours. At 9 p.m. Eastern, we'll have Trump delivering a televised speech on Iran. A lot of this I think is going to be him just boasting on what they've accomplished and all that. Now, does he get into a ceasefire or an ending of the war? That would be number one. Number two would be, hey, we're going to continue and we're going to go into a ground invasion. That would absolutely be stifling for markets. And then number three, I think, which is my prediction, it won't be much important. I think he'll stump a little bit in the sense of just saying, we did all this, we are building, we're continuing to show this, but the Iranians are bad and we're dealing with this as we go. I think it's going to boil down to that. It's going to kick the can down the road. We'll see if that changes. I hope that we get an announcement of some sort of peace deal. That would be huge. Now, the Iranian foreign minister, they are actually talking about a peace deal, not a ceasefire, an actual peace deal, ending the war. And I think that is a key thing. If we start to see those kind of talks come out, then dare I say, that is one of the things that Cramer kind of hit on, but I think everybody kind of knows that. That's an obvious. Now, there's a lot of other things, though, that play into this, and that, of course, is where we're dealing with market, I won't call it, I'm going to call it manipulation, because we've seen this manufactured FOMO, a lot of profiteering that has occurred. You guys have seen this with these radical moves on both oil, some of the defense stocks, even in Bitcoin and in crypto in general. We've already seen a lot of that. One other thing that is a major issue that resides within this deal is the Strait of Hormuz and the traffic. This has got to return to normal before we exit. And of course, Trump may be trying to exit without this. I don't know if you guys have been watching what he's doing on Truth Social, but he's actually saying, hey, the EU and other nation states should get active and involved in trying to get into diplomatic arrangements. I don't know if that's going to be good enough from a lens coming out of the U.S. if we were to escape or exit this war before the Strait of Hormuz is open. That still puts a lot of pressure on the sentiment in the markets in general. And I want to go to a clip real quick, because can he leave without actually opening the strait? This is where they break it down.
Which spoke to the reporting from the Wall Street Journal that maybe they'd end these hostilities at Iran without reopening the strait.
What do you do with this? Well, maybe you just focus on what's going on in the region. And frankly, every analyst and investor who's come on the show today has said, look at what is feasible. And it is infeasible for the U.S. to pull out, for this war to be over without the Strait of Hormuz being a passage of free flow for trade. And that's, I think, what a lot of people just keep focusing on.
All right. So one point that they hit on there, first of all, I will say this. None of us are war analysts. I think history is going to go and look at this in a very interesting lens in the future. One of the lenses it will look at is the amount of damage and baggage that it put on the Trump administration. Part of that, of course, shows up in Trump's sentiment numbers. And the numbers keep trending down. From the very top, that was the Doge fall off. Then we've just continued to see Liberation Day, the Justice Department, government shutdowns, Renee Good, the Iranian war. All of this has been just down and lower lows, for sentiment. Now, what does this mean? Can the market recover without Trump's administration's sentiment recovering? I think it could. Now, will it have a long-term effect? I think it really depends on how Trump tries to repair that going into the midterms, if in fact that they can do that at all. And one of the things that plays into this is where the market is starting to showcase. Schiff talks about it right here. Gold is up another 100 today. Gold stocks already adding 5, and that was after a 7% surge yesterday. It's not because the war is over. It's because investors are realizing, regardless of what Trump is doing in terms of the war progress, it's accelerating the move out of dollars. Now, do you think that is the case? Why haven't we seen Bitcoin in these 5 and 7% moves? Is that still a speculative asset, and gold is the alternative flight to safety? Let me know what you guys think, because gold, remember, hit 5,400. It has retraced down significantly and is now starting to edge back up towards the 5K. What could that be? Well, if you look at it right here, futures now surge above 4,800. This is up 720 since March 23rd low, and that was the tip of the drop that we saw that. Now adding 3 trillion in market. That's the entire crypto market, and that's just since Wednesday. All right, so maybe there is something here. If you look at the chart right here, you can kind of see the movement right there from 43. And if you go on the dip, that almost went all the way down to $4,000 an ounce. And of course, that was for a short period of time after some, I think, market funny business. But right there, 1, 2, 3, 4 days up right now on the daily chart, trading at 47.84 at time of recording. Other things you got to hit on, of course, is the fact that Iran is exacting a toll, and they're asking for payment in Yuan. And this is done, of course, on the transition of ships going through the Strait. This is for all, I think, all tankers. And this will play a bigger role, I think, in maybe the negotiations. This might be a negotiation ploy by the Iranians to try to get into a better deal with coming to an agreement with the Trump administration. I want to go to a clip real quick because Andrei Jikh breaks it down on, is gold done on this rally or not? Take a look.
And in order to get control, you need control over two things, which is oil and gold. For example, Iran has the choke point. It controls the Strait of Hormuz, of which 20% of the world's oil flows through every day. And Iran is using that leverage to make an offer to the world. Their offer is this. Hey guys, the Strait is actually open. You can pay for your oil in Chinese yuan, and then we'll let your ships through safely. And of course, China has the payment rails. So the actual transaction looks something like this. You sell your dollars, you buy your gold, you sell that gold to China in exchange for yuan, you take that yuan to Iran, and then you buy the oil, and your ship gets home safely. Right, so China now gets to sort of be right in the middle of this transaction. It gets to decide the exchange rate between gold and oil, which means China's deciding what the dollar is worth relative to everything else. And Iran has created a toll booth for the whole world. And the toll booth has to be paid in yuan, which is paid in gold. Now, there is a problem though. The oil market makes about $4.1 trillion worth of oil every year. It's a lot. And the entire gold market makes only about 485 billion, which means the oil market is roughly 9 times bigger than gold. The demand shock to gold could be unlike anything the market's ever seen because the gold market is just too small to absorb oil without the price moving in a very big way.
All right, so there you have it. And this, of course, plays out if, in fact, the current situation handles for a year. In other words, if we continue to see the demand of Chinese yuan being the transitory asset that's trying to enact you purchasing oil, that would happen for a year. That would put continued pressure on the dollar and, of course, put more assets into gold. And I think this is going to be one that we'll see if this plays out that way or if something is negotiated, because this could be a big negotiating ploy by Iran to get the administration in the right place. All right, so the real question here is, what does this do to assets? When you look at securities, but also risk, one of the things that you have to compare to is what if the securities market continues to trend down? Gold goes up, what happens to risk? Well, here's Warren Buffett breaking that down.
Well, let's talk about that. The market has come down substantially.
Not substantially.
Well, you've got both the Dow and the NASDAQ in correction territory. It's the worst performance on a quarterly basis for stocks in about 4 years. Do things look cheaper to you?
No. 3 times since I've taken over Berkshire, it's gone down more than 50%. I mean, if you look at the markets of, the worst probably was the 2007-8 period, although there was that one Monday when you had 21% in a day. I mean, this is nothing. I mean,
well, this is nothing to make you get excited and think there's huge valuation drops.
If they're 5 or 6% cheaper, that doesn't. We aren't in it to make 5 or 6%.
The point that I think Warren's getting at is that we are in a position where we could see volatility still yet. You look at the front end of the show, it's Tom Lee, kind of the new innovation of investors, saying, no, we're nearing the bottom. You look at guys who have been around almost 100 years, since the 1929 crashes. We've seen, he says, he's seen that before. The real question is does all of this play into gold? How the AI play comes into this, and you look at risk assets. All of that is really centered around what's happening right now in the macro market, and it all boils down to a meeting tonight at 9 o'clock. So we're going to cover that and more, so stick around for that. If you like this video, hit like and subscribe, drop a comment down below, and also join our free private member group. The link is in the description.